Hi folks, and welcome to TK Power Sports. Today we're taking a look at this, the brand new Kawasaki Mule 1000. Yes, they took that 1000cc out of the fun-focused KRX and they put it into the work-focused Mule. And yeah, that's what this machine is all about, so that's exactly what we're gonna do in this video. I'm gonna go over, load this thing up with payload so it is absolutely maxed out, and then we're gonna hit the trail and see how good off-road the Mule is when it's fully loaded. Let's start with the specific model we have here today. So this is the Kawasaki Mule PRO-FXT Ranch Edition. So the Ranch Edition is mostly styling. You can see the nice Ranch Edition badges. You can see the seats, the stitching in the seats. That's all kind of adding to the style, a little bit to the comfort of this machine. But there are a couple functional upgrades on the Ranch Edition. First of all, we get that worn winch down there. That comes standard, but only on Ranch Edition. And probably the most important upgrade is self-leveling rear suspension. So once you put a trailer on the back of this thing, it'll squat down, and then as you drive down the road, the actual rear end will pump itself back up, just using the movement from actually driving down the road. So it's a passive system, but it's really smart to give you that nice level attitude, even if you're pulling something heavy. And yeah, we're gonna put that to the test. But remember, you have to get Ranch Edition to get the self-leveling shocks. Now, outside of that, everything else here pretty much comes on the Mule 1000. Stuff like this massive steel bumper up here. You do get the 4 LED headlights across the front. I definitely like that setup as well. The sun top you also get with your Mule 1000 LE. And again, sun top, really a necessary feature these days. I expect every side-by-side now to come with the roof because it keeps, well, the sun off your head, the rain off your head, the snow off your head. Makes these things so much more livable. The other thing we get here is cast aluminum wheels. So of course that's a little bit about styling, makes the machine look a little bit nicer. Now as we roll back, the whole reason why you'd go for this Pro-FXT model is for the second row here. So we have the capability to seat up to 6 people, but this second row can actually collapse and we can make the bed bigger, and we'll get back to that in just a moment because we're gonna load the bed up and I'm gonna need more space. But until we get to that, let me show you the bed itself. So at the rear end here, this is what the bed looks like when it's collapsed down. It's not a massive space, but not bad. I love that you get real steel checker plate there for the floor, so that's really substantial, really beefy. Another small thing, but I appreciate it, the latches here on the tailgate of the Kawasaki. Some brands use latches that when you open them, they just dangle there. The Kawasaki latch is always sort of held in place, so when it is open, it's not just rattling around back there. I like that as well. And then finally, for tie downs in the bed here, we do have the rail system along the top, so you can use that to actually attach things to your bed. Now, one of the cool things about this trans cab, that's what Kawasaki calls the foldable bed and the second row, is the fact that you never lose your dumping capability. Let me show you. We flip this seat back forward. I've already unlatched it on both sides. And up it goes. So yes, you can dump it whether it's in the small configuration or the larger configuration, and that is important. And then the other nice thing, look at this engine access. It gives us massive, easy access to our engine. That, of course, is a 999cc parallel twin. This engine was introduced over in the KRX. And then Kawasaki obviously said, why should the Mule be left out? This thing's all about working hard, and more power for hard work is also a good thing. One other little detail I'll show you right now, you can see it in this shot. I love smart things like this. Around the oil filter, Kawasaki has added a little catch can. So when you're doing an oil change, when you pull that filter out, everyone knows you always get a bit of oil around the area on your hands. Well, now it's all going to be caught. It's not going to be all over your engine. It's small things like that that I think make a big difference, especially for someone who wants to do their own maintenance. So I appreciated Kawasaki making changes in places that we can't see them, as well as places that we can see them. Now up front, we can take you through the interior really quickly. Kawasaki still very much is about sparse interiors. Most of their interiors look like this. It's basically everything you need and nothing you don't. You get the nice storage in the center. You get a glove box that's fairly deep. But that's actually it for sort of storage up in the dash. A little cubby in front of the wheel and then cup holders, but not a ton when it comes to storage up here. And then all the switches and buttons that you need. You have your diff lock switch right there. You just change between 4-wheel drive and 2-wheel drive. Your lights. And then, of course, this is to shift gears. And just another thing that tells you Kawasaki is kind of resistant to change. There's no park in the transmission here. This machine only uses a parking brake. And that's slowly but surely actually becoming not the norm. The norm in side-by-sides these days is to have actual park in the transmission. When you're around Kawasaki machines, I think you start to realize this brand likes to do things a certain way, and they do not like to change those things, especially if they work. So finally, on the topic of storage, I do also have to show you this. Whoops, that whole seat pops right off. This is actually just good access down in here to your drive shaft. Over here is to your fuel tank. But then on the driver's side, I'll lean over. You do get a little storage bin down there underneath your driver's seat. So Kawasaki didn't totally forget about all the storage in here. I do appreciate that. Now let's go and load up some payload, and I'll convert that trans cab back there and show you how it works. Now let's convert the trans cab, and let me tell you that once you stretch this bed out, you're gaining an additional 20 inches, so it's a significant amount of space. And let me also say, with 2 people, this process is very simple. With 1 person, there's a bit of back and forth, but still quite an easy process. So step 1, you're going to want to lift up these bars right here. Step 2, you're just going to fold your seat forward. That was already done for us. And we're going to take this whole structure and just slide it forward. Now you can see there's these little bed wall sections right here. So you got to make sure those guys are totally flat, just like so. These bars then come back down and latch on there. Once again, make sure that's flat. Latched on there. And latched on there. Finally, you close up your doors, and there you have it. You just converted your bed. Like I said, you've gained an additional 20 inches. Now, my thoughts on this are pretty simple. I think this is the least compromised solution in the industry when it comes to a second row that is convertible. A machine like the Honda Pioneer does this as well, but the Pioneer can't dump. Here on the Kawasaki, you can dump whether you're in 3-person or 6-person mode, so you never lose the functionality of your bed. And then yeah, when you are in 6-person mode, the second row here is legitimately big. I can absolutely fit back there, no problem whatsoever. So for full-size or larger than full-size adults, you also get lots of space. So unlike a lot of times when you go for this sort of best of both worlds approach, you end up with something watered down. This doesn't feel like that. This truly does feel like the best of both worlds. A really functional dump bed when you need it, or the third row when you want it. So now you've seen the bed transform. Let's put this thing to work. Honestly, guys, in a lot of these videos, we run them around empty, but we're not doing that today. I'm gonna load up just under 1,000 pounds. That is the bed capacity for this mule when it's in 3-person mode. So we're gonna load up these rubber mats that I have. These guys weigh 97 pounds a piece. I'm gonna stick 10 of them in the back, and then we're gonna go do all the normal trails that I would do. I'm gonna go do the hydro line, the left hook, because this is really about, it's one thing for you to tell me it'll handle 1,000 pounds, but will it handle 1,000 pounds when doing a gnarly off-road trail? Well, that's what we're gonna find out today. And yeah, for the next 20 seconds though, watch me load. Here we go. Well, folks, we're loaded up now, and you can see that this machine is squatting, so I'm excited to see how this self-leveling rear suspension truly works. So, I loaded up the weight, have not moved the machine. I'm going to take my trusty tape measure here, and we're going to go right to the corner of this bed. I'm calling it 25.5 inches, 25.5 right to this corner. Now we're going to go drive around a little bit, run down the trail, give the suspension a chance to do its thing. We'll come back and we'll see how much taller this corner is sitting off the ground. Alrighty folks, here we are on the trail, and I wasn't kidding, we're starting with the tough stuff. So we're up here on the hydro line, there's the deep mud section up there, and you can see there's our 1,000 pounds of rubber mats. And you know what, as I sit here and think about it, I don't think I have ever done this before in the history of Truck King, TK Power Sports, or even back in the old TFL off-road days. I've never come up the hydro line with something fully loaded with payload. And you know what? Maybe this is something I should start to do more often, because again, let's face it, these brands give us these big numbers, but they never say, well, that's good for flat ground towing, or that's good going up a hill or up a mountain or through the mud. Well, that's exactly what we're here to find out. So, Kawasaki Mule 1000, let's see what you got. I'm putting her in 4-wheel drive, and we're not going to lock it up for now. All right, here we go. And low range. I've actually been in low range the whole time I've had the weight loaded up. That's definitely helpful. And now we're going in the mud. So we have 11.6 inches of ground clearance here, but we are still dragging in the belly a little bit. Oh yeah, definitely dragging. Of course, our rear end is squatting a little bit more than it normally would too. All right, Kawasaki Mule. So far, power feels incredible. That's the first thing I'm going to say about the 1000. The power here is immediate, feels good. And now let's get some speed up. Oh yeah, 1000, yes, feels good so far. Actually, maybe feel like I have more traction because I have all this weight pressing down. And now this is going to be the tricky part, up the hill. All right, out of the mud. We're still going nice and slow. Please don't fall out. I definitely rubbed something in my back end, but there we go. We are up and out. Good job, Kawasaki Mule. The 1000, what can I say? Tons of power. I love that they added this new engine to the Mule, and it's for jobs like this. It's not for jobs when you're moving around things, you know, on flat ground around the yard. Having that 1000 is really for jobs like getting 1,000 pounds into a gnarly work site through some crazy mud. And would you look at that? The Mule did a mighty fine job. Another thing I'll say too, you saw it right there, I just did a little U-turn. Turns really tight. I love the turning radius on this machine. So far the only real problem was, yeah, I dragged a bit because I think I'm squatting so much thanks to the weight, but outside of that, she's feeling good. So this is low range. My feet are not on the brake. This is all engine braking. And the engine braking here is actually pretty significant. And again, that just helps. When you have a big load on the back, that's a lot of weight pushing me down this hill. Right here on the steepest part, I did have to brake. Oof, and there's that big rock underneath. Thank you for skid plates. And now, back into the mud. Yes. Now, I can also feel the weight back there. There's no doubt that the rear end is sort of sitting low. I can feel it kind of come down hard on the back. So I'm also being a little more careful in the way that I'm driving. But overall, besides trying to be super smooth with it, I haven't really had to change my driving style very much. And would you look at that? That Mule just put the hydro line to shame with 1,000 pounds in the bed. That's pretty cool. Now we're back in from getting this thing muddy, and before I measure the squat here, just look at it. Visually, it is sitting nearly level now, and when we took off, it was squatting quite a bit. So yes, the self-leveling rear suspension is definitely working, and now let's actually measure, and I'll be able to tell you how much. So no, this won't be a perfect measurement, but it'll still be pretty close. That's 28.5 inches, which means that this rear corner came up 3 inches off the ground. That is a significant amount, and I can tell you that from behind the wheel, you can feel your front end coming down a little bit, your rear end coming up. That gives you a little bit more weight in your steering wheels. The machine just is able to actually do what it's supposed to do. The suspension can work better when it has that full travel. So yeah, the self-leveling rear suspension is a smart idea. I like that it works well. And now it's time for me to unload the 1,000 pounds, and we'll hit the trail a little bit more, and I'll tell you what it's like empty, and then maybe most importantly, we'll go do a top speed run. Before we take back off now, I want to show you underneath this mule, and I'll point out some particularly interesting things that sort of showed themselves after we ran through all that mud. But first of all, right up front, you get that steel bumper, and I love that it's actually bolted right into the first skid plate, and that is steel. This is my magnet test. That tells us that it's a steel skid plate. And I agree with this. I think the first skid plate makes sense to be some kind of metal, preferably steel, because this is going to take the hardest hits. Now, once you're up on an obstacle, you're dragging your belly. So this belly skid plate, that guy is plastic or some type of plastic polymer or composite. But again, this material is nice because it allows you to slide, unlike steel, which can gouge and kind of dig in a little bit. So again, up front, you get the strong hit, then you're up on it, you drag your belly across it, and then right back down here at the tail, once again, that is steel. And you saw when I was going through the hydro line there, I was hitting on this rear end quite a bit, mainly because I had the load in the back, so it was sitting a little bit lower. Now, the other thing I want to point out is right up here. That is your guard for your CV boot, and you'll see, look at all this mud and crap and salad that got packed in here. Well, the nice thing with a guard is that the CV boot is still nice and clean up there and unaffected by all this crazy mudding that I just did. So yes, these little guards here, they may not look like much, but they really do make a big difference. And we don't have them up front. So you can see there's your boot, it's exposed. All this salad and mud and stuff is gonna be contacting that thing straight up. So I do appreciate having those extra guards on the rear end of this machine. Okay folks, now the weight's out of the bed, and let's go have a little bit of fun in this 1,000, see what it's like. Ready? Foot to the floor. And the power is nice. I mean, obviously unloaded, it doesn't feel burdened at all. The punch off the line is not immediate, but it really is this nice, smooth power that rolls on. Now, another thing about this 999cc engine, it's quite quiet. And not only is it quiet, but again, because I have this mule with the fairly long wheelbase, the engine's way back there behind me. So it really just doesn't feel like you're that close to the engine, and therefore, the engine note is not very annoying at all. Now, coming through these corners, you can kind of feel the true nature of this mule. It's not meant to handle high-speed corners. The steering is really light, kind of over-boosted. There's not a ton of feedback in your hands. And then the travel here is just okay. We have 10 and 11 inches front and rear. Not quite as much as a Polaris Ranger XP1000, but also not a horrible amount considering utility machines of not that long ago had about half that amount of travel. So with that, you can come out on here on a trail, and the machine takes care of you okay. But I would say this mule is very clearly geared towards work. I wouldn't buy it if going out on the weekend and going for fun trail rides is really one of your main goals. If you really want to work with it and then occasionally run it, yeah, you'll be okay. But I just think more so than, again, I come back to the Polaris Ranger and even the Can-Am Defender, more so than those machines, I feel like the Kawasaki Mule is just singularly focused on getting hard work done. Now the ergonomics here are pretty good. I stand at 6'2", over 300 pounds, but I have loads of headroom, no problem. The steering wheel here does adjust. You can see it goes up and down, so you can really get a comfortable position out of it. And it is a pretty upright vertical seating position, again, typical of all utility machines. But at least here in our Ranch Edition Mule, we do have
what are called the contoured seats. So these seats are a little bit softer and they have a little bit more bolstering to them. And yeah, I don't think they're super aggressive sport seats, but over a day of hard work, they'd probably be a little more comfortable than the standard seats. And back through the hydro line we go. Yeah, watch your boots. And no problem at all. This 1000 just has loads and loads of smooth torque and power. But there you go, that's some big whoops at about 30 kilometers an hour, and we absolutely have found the limit of this Kawasaki Mule. And now, ladies and gentlemen, time for the top speed run. So I've got an empty road here. I've got it in high range, two-wheel drive. Let's see what this new 1000 in the Mule will do. Here we go. Well, folks, I saw 98 kilometers per hour, which is basically 60 miles per hour. And that last sort of 10K, it did take a while to get there. If I had a longer stretch, I could probably get to 100 kilometers an hour. But yeah, right around 60 miles per hour, that's gonna be your top speed on this Mule 1000. Well, folks, we have come to the end of this video. Now, what can I say? This new Mule 1000, it's hard to complain about more power. And when you are out there running through the mud, fully loaded, having that extra horsepower makes a big difference. And it means that this Mule can deliver on its promises, even in some of those really tough scenarios. So yeah, that's it for this one. I need to hear from you. Let me know what you think of this updated Kawasaki Mule 1000. Let me know what you think of the fully loaded Hydroline test. Maybe we'll make that a staple here on the channel with all the side-by-sides we bring home, because I really felt like that put this thing to the proper test. And then, like I said, while you're leaving me that comment, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member of TK Power Sports, and then come right back here to the channel to see what we're testing next. See ya!